Hello there and welcome along to another mixed martial arts conversation for Sky Sports, reacting to Patricio Pitbull's emphatic defense of his featherweight title in Bellator overnight, which was live on Sky Sports, defeating Pedro Carvalho with a knockout victory in the first round. Very pleased to say that distinguished combat sports journalist Gareth Davies joins us once more to get some reaction. Gareth, good to see you. Thank you for your time. What was your reaction? How big a statement was that last night?
Hi, Ed. Yeah, thanks for having me on again. Well, I think, like you say, it was a statement. And I think the biggest thing that really came out of it was, you know, the mixed martial arts media can be very incestuous at times. You know, it's a very bubbling, very hot, temperatured world. And I think what you saw across the panoply of coverage was the acceptance that this guy is definitely on the pound for pound list. And I think it's good for Patricio Pitbull, it's good for Bellator, and it's good for the fact that they're being recognized. And I think that's what really stood out. Everyone who's anyone in the MMA media, if you like, was so complimentary about this is a guy at the peak of his powers, mentioning the Chandler victory that took him to a two-weight world champion at lightweight and featherweight. And also, I think, because Pedro Carvalho was a perfect foil, I mean, the headline on my preview was, will Carvalho's mind games and self-confidence be enough to dethrone this champion? Because you cannot doubt Carvalho's self-confidence. And in fact, it was probably his undoing in some ways. I mean, I wrote in my preview that he had to be careful pressing the space against this guy. Let Pitbull come on. He needed to take the fight to the ground. And basically, I think he walked into Pitbull's trap. He's a very powerful, very calm, very composed champion who just did his business on, I don't want to sound Saturday night, on Thursday night. Yeah.
yeah, it's all over the week at the moment. It keeps coming, the action. Do you think then, you mentioned that the MMA greatest, Alexander Volkanovski, of course, is the champion over in the UFC. Do you put him above him in terms of ranking the greatest at 145?
Well, I'll say that will be an amazing fight. That's a super fight at 145 right now. He's as good as, if not better. Would I rank him above? Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think I'd say they're pretty much equal. I mean, Volkanovski, I think, has one victory over Max Holloway, not two. I don't think he beat him in the second fight. But, you know, I think he deserves to be up there. And he's definitely up there in the top, you know, top 10 pound for pound, if not the top 5, 6, 7 pound for pound. But I think, you know, what it does, it elevates his body of work in terms of, you know, I mean, we're talking about Bellator as opposed to the UFC. You know, he's been Bellator, I think 7 years or something. So it might be 8 years. You look back on the old footage, they did a brilliant look back with Robin, I can't remember his surname now, with Robin, who does all their analysis. Yeah. And you know, they look back all the way, this fresh-faced young kid fighting in Bellator years ago, and he was a raw fighter. But you can tell he's got a very low resting heart rate now, even when he fights. You saw that with Carvalho in his face during the weigh-in. He is so in tune with his moment. And you see that with great sportsmen in their moment. Johnny Wilkinson, World Cup 2003 finals. Just, you know, Ben Stokes last year against Australia, you know, just these moments that sportsmen have where they're completely in tune with themselves, and it doesn't last very long. So let's make the most of it. You know?
Yeah, we talked about that with Gegard Mousasi actually recently with analysts, that he has that level of relaxation in the arena, which is counterintuitive to us because we'd be pumped up beyond belief. But that's actually key, isn't it, for them to be able to think cleanly? And it just felt that he could see everything before Carvalho attempted to throw.
Definitely. And it was a one-sided beatdown. A lot happened in there. I mean, he nearly got the submission. It just looked like it was like it was like a fierce gale blowing down a straw house. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to Pedro, by the way, because he's a fantastic character. But it looked like someone was being flooded. You know, the dam had been broken. He was just coming through. It was just extraordinary. I mean, and it was a beatdown. You know, what was it? 2 minutes, 10 seconds. You know, 130 seconds of mayhem, basically. You know, and I know you're going to lead on to it, but I cannot wait to see him fight, you know, the winner of the other semi-final, you know.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanchez. What did you make of that? Because Sanchez got the better of Weichel, and I know people saw it as a tight fight pre-fight, but that Sanchez perhaps lacked consistency, they said, but it was a very consistent performance, wasn't it? It seemed to just outperform Weichel and outstrike him at key moments. He has fought, of course, Pitbull before. When we take everything into consideration, what does he need to do in that semi-final match to get the better of a legend? Yeah,
well, I think that's the point. I mean, he really has come on in that 4 years. So you could see it yesterday. I mean, he said he was going to sting like a butterfly. Sting like a bee and float like a butterfly, using Muhammad Ali's saying when we spoke to him, you know, in our media kind of Zoom call on Tuesday or Monday. And, you know, I think there was a maturity in that performance. He wasn't reckless, and there was a recklessness about Emmanuel in the past. Like, he's with a brilliant guy in Duke Rufus, so his stand-up's always going to be amazing. But he smothered Weichel, who is a really underrated. I think he's one of the greatest mixed martial artists to come out of Europe. He's had a long and decorated career. He's got an ironclad chin. He's a superb athlete and fighter, a meticulous professional who's been in some amazing fights and has fought in several weight divisions. He's a test for anyone. So, you know, it was an accomplished performance, and it was the right kind of performance to put himself next in against the champion. And I think you could see his pleasure sitting. They filmed him, didn't they, on social media with still had his Sanchez bandana on, and you know, he was giving it that one from cage side, and you could see his appetite for the fight. It was nice they got them in the cage afterwards, and those two are proper martial artists, and you could see it with it. It's going to be a terrific fight, and you know, you could almost say that's a 55-45 fight. Sanchez have got the tools, definitely, to get into the final of this tournament and win the belt in the semi-final.
It's cautious aggression against Pitbull the key then, from what we saw last night for Sanchez. You don't want to walk into anything, do you? You have to, we're not fighters, but throw something on the way in to give Pitbull something to think about?
Yeah, well, his nickname's the Matador, isn't it? What he did cleverly last night, used footwork, like you say, he wasn't the brawler that he wants to be. He's more cultivated now, and that is the only way you're going to beat Pitbull. Look, people make the mistake of doing a shootout with Pitbull. He's got very clever coaches. He cleverly slipped Chandler, didn't he, to the side and caught him. He's a destructive, you know,
counterpuncher, is he really? Yeah,
counterpuncher, and you know, that kind of Brazilian shooter box style where it's kill or be killed, you know. But he's brilliant at it. His timing is fantastic, and as we were saying just now, he's in the peak of it. He's in the prime of his life, and he's at the peak of his powers. So it's not a way to take on. Don't have a shootout with Pitbull. That's what he's great at, you know.
Well, quick thought on Pedro Carvalho, because as you say, it's a great story. He created a lot of the attention around the fight, the Portugal-Brazil subplot, and his story about moving to Ireland to go to the Straight Blast gym and moving his family, eventually uprooting them. How does he rebuild from that? Are you confident? Because he had this 6-streak winning run, didn't he, as well? But do you feel that he can rebuild from this? You mentioned age. He is 25 years of age and a relative novice, I suppose, to Pitbull.
Yeah, he can really rebuild. I mean, look, he was up against one of the great fighters in MMA right now in that contest. So he's got incredible self-belief. I mean, he looked shaken afterwards, but, you know, he'll be back. I mean, he's got such a long way to go in his career. He's very highly regarded by all his teammates. I mean, I think some of the guys put out messages afterwards from his gym saying he'll bounce back from this. You know, he's on a mission. He believes he's destined to have greatness in the sport. He believes he's destined to to do things. And he's got the masterful shadow of Conor McGregor knocking around him all the time. So he gets that, feeds off that kind of confidence. And you hear the braggadocio at times of a Conor McGregor in him, He showed before this performance, like you say, 6-fight win streak, that he's a very destructive force. But he just came up against the wrong force at the wrong time, and he got force majeured last night in the Mohegan Sun, Connecticut.
Yeah, he certainly did. It's about levels, as they say in combat sports. They say sometimes in combat sports you do learn more in defeat and setbacks. And I wonder, on that note, quick talk about on the prelims, Aaron Pico's win over John De Jesus, emphatic overhand right knockout. What do you make of the PK story? Is this a man who's learned and has improved?
Well, he's got to, because he came into the sport with everyone saying he was a nailed down, I think we all said it, future world champion. And has suffered his losses, but he's 3-0 now, and he needs to put a win streak together, because mentally, I've been with him where he's absolutely broken after a defeat. I mean, literally broken down. This is a guy who's lived like a Spartan since he was 7, who's a very formidable boxer, wrestler, gave up the opportunity to go to, the Olympics potentially as a wrestler for the United States. To follow this career, Ed. And he's a brilliant character. I don't know if you've met him yet, but he's a brilliant, brilliant character. There he was. He always does things right. He was suited and booted last night on the way in. He's a deeply respectful person. I've met his family. He will make it. There's no question about it. He's in a solid relationship already, rides motorbikes, he's got horses, everything he does. I don't think he drinks a drop of alcohol. I don't know if he has in his life. Everything he does is geared to being a world champion in MMA and boxing that he wants to be, So, he's very, very dangerous to fight. There's no question about it.
It's a funny subplot that, because we've covered combat sports, and you always feel that people should be amped up thinking about it all the time. But actually, you've recently done a piece, I know it's on your YouTube page, with Tyson Fury, arguably the greatest boxer currently, and we associate him with relaxation in the ring, don't you, as well? And is that something that Pico's had to learn? He's had the discipline, he had the grounding, but perhaps on the night he just needed that sort of the mindset and clarity.
Yeah, and just to be patient, rather like we were talking about with Patricio Pitbull, what he's learned is patience. Knowing what style works for you. We know Pico's destructive. We know he's very dangerous, but it's timing. It's having, and also, you've still got it. I haven't, but the recklessness of youth. But you don't know till you're older. When you look back on the recklessness of your youth, and that's what fighters are learning. He's still such a young man, so there's no fear. So, there's so much riding for these guys on the line every single time they walk to the cage or boxers walk to the ring. And, they're pumped up. They've trained so hard. They want to deliver. And it only takes that 4 millimeters in the wrong direction or a millisecond to make your strike that's wrong, and you're caught the other way. And it's back to the drawing board, and everyone's hammering you on social media. But Aaron Pico, I'll leave you with this. Aaron Pico said to me when he lost his first fight, I don't care if I lose 100 times, before I have a win, I'm going to be a world champion one day. And I believe him. Wow,
that is an inspiring thing, and they all inspire us as well. Their courage to get in there in the first place and learn and adapt. High risk profession indeed. Gareth A. Davies, appreciate your time, and we'll speak to you again very soon.
I've always got time for you. You're young, you're reckless, and it's always great talking to you.
I'm not sure if I'm young, but I'm probably reckless, my wife. Thank you.